Hi, I'm your host, Anand J. Sukadia, and this is the Limitless One podcast. Join me on this journey as I interview the most inspirational souls who are tapping into their limitless blueprint on a mental, physical, and spiritual level to thrive in uncertain times. If you feel you are so much more than just this body, just this life, and want to tap into your limitless potential, you're in the right place. Here we go, starseeds. One of humanity's greatest teachers, the psilocybin mushroom, has been sharing its higher wisdom and consciousness with humans for millennia. Today, we are going to learn about the experience of microdosing for improved cognitive health, vitality, and an overall enhanced life with Adam Schell, founder of BrainSupreme. Adam is a former Big Ten linebacker, published author, cannabis distributor, and yoga instructor turned microdosing coach. Adam has a great story to tell. After over 3,000 conversations with microdose clients, Adam is a leader in the coaching space and can shed a light on many of the misconceptions surrounding the mushroom space and what it means to microdose intentionally. Welcome to the podcast, Adam Schell. How you doing, brother?
Great. Thank you for the nice intro. So looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I reached out to you after hearing about you on the Tinfoil Hat podcast, you and your company, BrainSupreme. And it's so funny because I think it was that day or the day before I was thinking about myself. I was planning to relaunch my podcast, took a couple months off. I have a 6-month-old baby, so obviously it's tough to do recordings, but I was thinking about microdosing for myself because I have so many things going on. I want to stay laser focused. And then also having somebody on the podcast to talk about psilocybin microdosing. And ding, 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 you show up in my ethos, and it was amazing. And then after hearing that podcast you did with Sam, I reached out to you, and funny enough, you said that you actually have seen my podcast too in the past. So all these synchronicities just show me that we're definitely on the right path in life. And when the more synchronicities happen to you, the more you know that it's exactly in alignment with your highest good.
Right. Which, it's funny. I'm jumping way ahead here, but sometimes people ask me, like, what have you noticed anything long-term about microdosing? And I say, yeah. So did you ever see Fantastic Film Guy, the Netflix documentary?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So like this was pre I've sold my soul to the pharmaceutical industry, Stamets.
Yeah.
It's about pretty much about the life and work, for your listeners, about the life and work of Paul Stamets, who's like one of the foremost mycology and mushroom experts in the world. And there's this thing that he does where he talks about the mycelial network of the forest, which are the root fibers of mushrooms that go out and interconnect the forest and relay information between the trees. And so I've noticed, like, over 6 years of developing the product and microdosing, this kind of what I call this etheric mycelial network, like from my heart and from my head, like literally fibers go out and they deepen my empathy and my compassion and my connection to human beings, my family, God, nature, spirit. And they also, so it's like, now I need to give, now I need to receive. It's like it conducts this etheric information. So we're having a conversation, but there's another conversation that's always going on. It's made me a better listener. It's made me know, like, now's my time to go. Now's my time to pull back. But also what you're talking about is synchronicities. It's definitely increased the synchronicities in my life. And we, like, you got law of attraction and manifestation, and you have the synchronicities that you think about. And then you have these other kind of wild synchronicities. And that one, like just the randomness of, hey, I'm thinking about microdosing again because I've got all these other new life challenges and stresses on my time, and I need to compartmentalize and be efficient. And, there I am, and there this product is. So that happens all the time. It's great.
Yeah, I love it. And what's so cool is that about that fantastic fungi, really taught me that the mycelial complex is its own kingdom, and it goes so vast and so deep. Literally every step you take on planet Earth, there's an entire complex of mycelium underneath. I think it's like up to 5 kilometers or something like that. And the mushroom that you see itself is just the flower that blooms when it comes out of the ground. But, in that same light, when you have all these mycelium connecting and sending nutrients to trees that need trees and need the nutrients, and everything is so interconnected. So I believe also the flower and that offering that the mycelium complex is giving to us humans, and we take that that mycelium, that fungus, and we put it in our bodies, it's using us to do the work also of the, the coherence of the earth, and to do good by the earth, and to just
Mm.
raise our consciousness, because it needs humans to start elevating their consciousness. Otherwise, we're not gonna, have a planet, if we keep continuing the way that we're doing it.
So that's actually, listen, I've thought about mushrooms in every single way imaginable that I could think of. I've actually never thought about that somehow they're also using us to relay information that's benevolent and beneficial to them.
Yeah,
Great point. Kind of
amazing.
blows my mind, but yeah.
Awesome. So I'm gonna hit you with the banger to start the podcast. What does living a limitless life mean to you?
So, look, I'm 54 and I've taken some real lumps. So my definition of that has gotten smaller. Like, how well can I do the little things in my life? With what level of mindfulness and consideration and excellence? When I'm kind of a food nut, so like my kids have, unless I screwed something up, my kids have never had a school lunch. You know what I'm saying? So like, how well can I make the lunch? How when I'm cleaning, like how well can I clean? When I fold, how well can I clean? So, and then also in terms of my own well-being and physical health and approaching this company and what I'm doing, it's really like um, how the things that I can control that are usually very, very small, like how well can I do them? So if I'm answering you, the spontaneous answer to that question would be that really it's about mindfulness and going for excellence in every perceivable and small situation. And then I'll let the big things kind of take care of themselves. Because when you're younger, you're focusing on the big things and the big things, and it makes you a little bit crazy, and you lose the intimacy and some of the connections with yourself and your friends and your family and your children. You get a little older, you do some major face plants. It's like, how well can I do these small things? So to answer your question, that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's beautiful, because you can't have the macro picture without the micro steps and the micro actions. So if you're doing everything with absolute intention, then obviously the big picture you don't have to worry about, because everything is woven in this fabric with such beauty and such love and such intention that, yeah, the whatever you create is going to be magic. You don't even have to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
It's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about your story and how you got started with psilocybin microdosing.
Okay. So I was a college football athlete. I was a high school all-state football player. I got a football scholarship to a Big Ten school. I was pretty much perennial second string. But I had a couple starts in there, and there was a lot of hits on the body. And this is kind of a longer answer. When I wasn't like prudish or anything like that, because I was a New Jersey, New York City kid, because my parents got divorced. I was in the city a lot and so forth. But I was like very straight laced, very, very minimal drug use. Alcohol always kind of made me feel terrible. So I was a 240-pound linebacker. I'd drink 3 beers and I'd be sick for like literally 36 hours. I just couldn't function well and perform well. So I was never like a big partier. I was pretty straight laced. I was living in New York City at 24 years old. My lower back was going out all the time. So that got me into yoga. And turns out that like all the things that made me kind of an average college football player, I was, slow, weak, not too strong, but Jewish, but funny and very flexible. So when I moved to LA, it made me like the most extraordinary kind of yoga practitioner and teacher. And people started asking me like, would I
Very
teach
unique.
yoga? Yeah. So I started teaching yoga, and became a little bit like something of a celebrity yoga teacher, pack classes, kind of a, typical what happens in LA, so, celebrity-ish clientele. And I got exposed to the cannabis industry and using cannabis as medicine. And then I got exposed a little bit to the mushroom industry and psychedelics. So I started to incorporate some of these things into my yogic practice, and as I was kind of going about my life. And then I got into, I had written a novel. I studied film at college, and Then I got a master's in creative writing and English, and I was working on a novel, and I spent like 10 years, like almost my entire 30s, from late 20s to late 30s. And the book sold like everybody couldn't believe it. Like it sold in 4 days for over $1 million. And it was like really exciting. And then everything just went to shit. The 2008, 2009 housing and economy crisis happened. The publishing world completely imploded with self-publishing and everything at Amazon, everything falling apart. And then Michael Jackson died the day my novel came out. So I literally had to completely, like, it was like it's never happened. It was like my whole life was supposed to change. The number 1, 2, and 3 at the division of Random House that we were with, they all got fired. So it's like, oh fuck, what do I do now? So I went back to teaching yoga, and I was doing some private chefing, and I had started a soccer not-for-profit during that time. My 2.5-year-old seemed very, very talented, and 3 years old for soccer. So I brought a coach over from Europe that I'd met at this kind of clinic, and he started living with us. And we were living in this part of Calabasas, which is like the backside of Malibu. And we were going to this school that had a lot of really prominent, influential families. And I started this soccer not-for-profit. And one of the guys on the club was like, "Hey, man, I like the way you get shit done. Tell me what you're doing." And I was like, "Well," he said, "come to this meeting with me." So he introduced me to the California cannabis industry. And I wasn't really a weed guy, but I had to start making some money in my life, and I had to rebuild. And the bar was so low in the cannabis industry at that time that basically honest and competent was the new extraordinary. So within like 3.5 years, I had a multi-million-dollar distribution company going up and down the state. I had 100 farms, and I had, a whole team and vans, and we had great distribution. But I wasn't really like a cannabis guy. I appreciate it. I know it's good medicine. It's like so much better than alcohol. I use it topically a lot, and I'll eat a gummy if I'm ever in some kind of pain or something like that. But I was like, I think I want to explore psilocybin. So I'd had a psilocybin experience when I was 19 years old. It was like really kind of changed my life. And I went back to that. And I had met a guy in my Calabasas community. We'd meet at the sauna. He was a Russian dude. Our kids were kind of friends. And we started chatting. We were talking weed, and then we started talking mushrooms. And he comes from 4 generations of mushroom foragers. And it turns out that he's had a little cannabis grow, and he really grew interesting, very meticulous about it. And so I said, "Do you think you could grow mushrooms?" And he said, "Yeah." So I was so cash positive at the time. The distribution in the California cannabis industry was booming. So I funded him out to start to do a mushroom grow, and we became partners. And I'm like, I don't want to do the chocolatey thing. I don't want to do shroomy. I was really getting, I was approaching 50, late 40s. And I'm like, I want to hack. I've got so much to do. I got started late in life. I don't have college funds. I got none of that 401k shit. So I really needed like a middle-aged hack. And we started with this concept of approaching microdosing as the ultimate form of supplementation. That I didn't want to like juice myself with steroids and do all, the experimental treatments, but I needed more energy. I needed more focus. I had a lot to accomplish. I still had, young kids. So that was the genesis of starting BrainSupreme, was how we could really maximize on human potential in a completely beneficial fashion without side effect.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's so cool that, because I heard your story about this previously, and then you telling us now. It's like, with supplements especially, like you don't really feel the supplement and you don't know if it's working, right? When I take like 30, 40 different things a day,
Yeah.
and there's never any kind of like, okay, this is absolutely working. If I'm taking NAD, or if I'm taking, glutathione, or whatever, right? I feel the same. I feel relatively healthy. I'm, 43, but I work out all the time. I sleep well. I'm a biohacker. I have a wellness center.
Yeah.
So there's nothing really that shows me, okay, this is better than the other. But then, yes, when you take psilocybin microdose, it's like, for sure this is working because you feel it and you're in it. And I think that's really the biggest thing for me, is like, that's the one supplement I know for sure it's making a huge impact on my life on a day-to-day basis the minute I take it.
So, I do these podcasts, and they usually come up pretty quick. But we've had a month to develop our relationship. So let me just turn the tables a little bit. Like, I sent you BrainSupreme samples about a month ago. So you tell me, what's been your experience?
Yeah, so I've been pretty consistent taking it. I'll just give you a little background. So I never really had any big mushroom experiences in my life, maybe 1 or 2, but only recently in the last like 4 years, I had like maybe 2.5 grams, and then another 2.5 grams, like, a couple months later, but really never was exposed to it. And actually, like happy about that because when I was younger, I had alcohol and stuff like that, but it never really got into psilocybin or any other psychedelics. But like later on in life, I've yeah, have ayahuasca experiences. I've done
Mm.
5-MeO DMT. So really I did it intentionally with the intention to really connect with my spirit and stuff. So now getting introduced to it more, I've tried LSD microdosing, I've tried THC microdosing, but it never resonated with me in the last year. It felt weird. I didn't feel like I was in flow. I didn't feel like, it brought me much in life. With THC, it was just keeping me like real neurotic. I just wanted to be by myself and like think or whatever. But with this is a completely different ball game. So first from the cognitive effects, I feel so much more focused. My brain is scatterbrained. I need to have like 10 different things going on. I have 10 different browsers up. Like anytime I think about something, I move on to the next. So I needed really a lot more focus. Running a business, there's a lot of things going on, plus working on, having a child, 6-month old, there's always things that can distract you. So this thing really helped me in terms of focusing my
Mm.
energy, taking on one thing at a time. Secondly, from a mood perspective, I feel so much more living in my heart. And I think that's one of my goals after, having experience with ayahuasca and stuff like that. I know my life flows so much better when I'm living from the heart. When I'm in my head, I always get stuck around me. And it's like one of those things where life will only wants to show me results when the results that I want when I'm living from my heart. Whenever I start getting in my head or living from ego, like I just get like the door slammed right shut on my face. So this is amazing in that it keeps me in the present moment. It helps me connect deeper with my wife. It helps me just appreciate the gratitude for my 6-month old son. He's the most beautiful thing on the universe to me. And every time I look at him, it's just like literally tears of joy come down my face, and this has really helped me to deepen into that love and not hold it back. And same thing with my little pup. I have a 2.5-month old or 2.5-year old golden doodle, and he's like the love of my life. So, when I see my family, I'm just super happy. And that is the basis for everything I do in life. That's my inspiration. And I feel so blessed every single moment of every day when I see them, when I interact with them. And this microdose has really helped me with that. And then the
Could you
other, yeah, sorry.
could you quantify it? Like, if you reflect back on the month, like, are you 5% better? Are you 10%, 20%? Is there like a kind of a
I would
number
say
you'd be
I
at?
would say a good 25%
Oh,
better
wow.
in terms of
That's
just,
great.
yeah, like overall mood and really the focus part of it is really
Yeah.
important for me because yeah, I'm the type of person. I have a checklist of everything I need to do in the day on my phone. Also, I have a planner that I put off and I'm like always like I need to check things off. So it's like it's a little bit of I guess just like overkill of the things I need to do. And it's always in my mind, like, oh, I have to do this, this, and this, and this rather than really being in the present and just
Mm.
enjoying every single thing that I'm doing. And now I'm doing it from more of a flow perspective rather than like a scarcity perspective of like, I only have enough time in a day to do this, this, and this. Don't bother me, that kind of thing. And then another thing I noticed, because normally I'll work out in the mornings. And then recently I've been doing a lot of running stairs. I live in a high rise. It's about 45 flights up, and I do about 60 flights of stairs just to increase my cardio to help with some of the baby weight that I gained from having a baby. Not me personally, but just eating
No, no.
poorly and stuff like that. Hey, you never know these days, right?
Right.
But also I'm going to Peru and I know I'm going to be in the elevation in October. So I wanted to make sure my cardio is really good and I'm able to
Mm.
climb and do all these things. So normally I work out in the morning and I'll do my microdose after all that stuff. The other day, I actually did a microdose in the morning and then I did the stairs in the afternoon. And I noticed I had the best time ever. And this was
Hmm.
after 4 days of not working out, which is crazy because when you stop doing cardio for even a couple of days, it's hard to, repeat the same performance unless you're doing it all the time. So, and I had a little bit of a cold. That's why I took a couple of days off. So I'm like, that's weird. Like 2 hours after I took a microdose and I had my best time ever after coming off a cold and not working out for 4 days. That's pretty amazing. And then I did it the next day and I didn't have the microdose. And it was like 30, 40 seconds more time than I did
Mm.
this one time. So yeah,
Hmm.
from every perspective, it's incredible. I'm just kind of figuring out the dosages on basically what I'm doing for the day. And maybe we
All right,
can
let's
yeah. Yeah.
Hold on, I want to pause because you touched on a couple things that I just want to kind of reiterate for your listeners and your audience. So, in my experience, microdosing LSD and microdosing THC is what I call disassociative. Like you get in your head, and possibly if your work and your engagement in life is very insular, very reflective, maybe very creative, but created kind of from like a first draft egoic standpoint, like you just got to be in the zone and think what you're doing is amazing. That's how I find the smaller dose of THC and smaller doses of LSD. They're disassociative. I'm not connected with the world around me, with my life, with my children, while microdosing psilocybin is associative. You're much more engaged in the world and the people that you interact with in an authentic fashion. It's so much more enjoyable to me at the microdosing level, much more effective. I also have found that LSD microdosing much later in the day, 4, 5, 6 hours later, I will get some anxiety that creeps up. That's like, it's almost like a jolt of LSD is in the brain that's a little too much. Texas has a lot of these overpasses, like 60, 70, 80, 100 feet overpasses. And I coach microdosing. I got to know it all. So I had been going through a course of microdosing LSD. I was not in love with the process. And like 6, 8 hours after microdose, I'm going over a overpass that I go over all the time. And I'm like, holy shit, like I got to keep my shit together. Like I'm freaking out. Like there's real consequences here, man. And so I agree with what you're saying. And it's nice to hear these kind of confirmations from another person of this. You didn't have the language, but the THC and the LSD being disassociative, the psilocybin microdosing being associative, like you're much more connected to nature, your wife, your children, your new puppy, your baby, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, very much so. And then the thing about performance, we have a protocol. We have three protocols. We tell people to start with supplement dosing, treat it as a supplement. Okay. From my coaching protocol, the way you kind of begin the process of microdosing is demystify. Just get used to it. Any suspicions, any anxiety, anything you have around it, demystify the process, limp in, start very small. Then you familiarize, you really start to understand it. And then once you kind of understand it, then you go on a process of personalization, because there's no hard science with microdosing. You could microdose 1 day on, 3 days off. You could microdose 5 days on, 2 days off. You could do a performance dose, which is something we teach, where kind of sounds like where you're going into that, a little bit of a higher level microdose on your peak days and peak training or peak athletic days. My professional and amateur athletes will do a higher dose on one training day, let's say on a Wednesday, and then they'll do the performance dose again on game day. So it's interesting how just naturally you're following that process of demystifying, familiarizing, and personalizing, and you're kind of finding your arc. And a lot of the things that I just teach naturally in my coaching course, you're already bringing up, which is kind of great. So blah, blah. Those were the thoughts I just wanted to jump in on there. So
yeah,
please
definitely.
go on.
Yeah, so in terms of, figuring out the correct dosage and, for what I'm doing, do you have any suggestions, or can you coach me on that in terms of, I've heard of the Stamets like protocol, and then I've heard of, the cycling and you have to take a few days off. Can you just kind of go into that a little bit? Is there any such thing as too much microdosing or too little, or you have to stay on it for a little bit of time in order for the effects to be cumulative?
So there's so many variables. So look, I'm 230 pounds. And I don't know, what are you, 165?
Me, I'm
Yeah.
about 190.
Okay, you're 190.
Yeah.
And let's say
I'm
your
a
wife
tall
is
Indian. I'm
good for you,
6'1",
man.
yeah.
Good for you. And your wife might be 5'4" and 120. Okay. Our brains and nervous system all weigh about 5 pounds. Doesn't matter whether it's my, 5'4" 122-pound wife, or whether it's the, 230-pound ex-linebacker. Our brains and nervous system are about the same. So you take body weight with microdosing pretty much off the table. All right. And now you're dealing in neurological needs. And that's an entirely subjective process. So your neurological needs, my neurological needs, my wife's neurological needs can be, mildly different. I would say it's a general consensus, if you're doing the supplement protocol, Microdosing, okay, microdosing is defined as 10% and less of a macro dose. So if you're tripping balls historically at 5 grams, 5,000 milligrams, you're microdosing somewhere between 1 to 400 milligrams. That's kind of the range of a microdose. It can be a little less for some people. It can be a little bit more for some people. The average is, for our product, 2 to 3 capsules or 2 to 300 milligrams of the active ingredient. So if you're doing the supplement protocol, which is 5 days on, 2 days off, always start at 1 capsule. Just limp in. Do it on a, especially if you're newer to the process, do it on an off day. Start on a Saturday or Sunday. Just take 1 capsule. Take half a capsule if you have any anxiety. Most likely, you're going to notice very little, or maybe something mildly pleasant. But let's just take anxiety off the table. Don't do it on your first work day. Don't do it where there's any kind of anxiety or pressure that could creep in. Just honor that day and honor that process. Eventually, you could probably go to doing your microdosing Monday through Friday, like a lot of the supplement dosing protocols, because it very much helps you with your work-life balance and your workday performance. So you want to limp in, and then you just start. The first 2 weeks you microdose should really be on the supplement protocol, that 5 days on, 2 days off. And you want to hit what's called your sweet spot, which is perceptible, non-intoxicating, non-hallucinatory, but you want to perceive some level of benefit. Hey, I think I was a little better today. I was like more patient at work, and like I'm feeling a little hornier. I did extra reps at the gym, like some perceptible level of benefit in your life. And that's your sweet spot. And you just keep scaling your dosage up till you find the sweet spot. The general average is 2 to 3 capsules, maybe somewhere between 1 to 3. And then you can also scale over the course of the week. So you could do your first 3 days, let's say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on 1 capsule, and then Thursday, Friday on 2 capsules, because you do acclimate to microdosing. And then you take your 2 days off. So to answer the question specifically about the dosage, from the supplement protocol, when you begin, you just have to experiment. Some people, 1 capsule is great too. I'm a little shroomy, Others, I kind of got to take like 600 milligrams. I'll do the first 3 days on 4 capsules, and I'll do the last 3 days on 2 Black Stack and 1 Genius, which is a 600 milligram. It's just wildly variable. Do not push yourself towards the higher dosage. Don't assume that. Even if you're very adept at macro dosing, don't assume that you need to do a higher microdose. It's also expensive. I mean, microdosing for me, it's an slightly expensive supplement that works, that's perceptible. I'm just like you on the supplements. I go to functional MDs, integrative MDs. I spend a shit ton of money on supplements, and it's always, I hope they work. I think they work. Everybody else got sick. I didn't get that sick. For my age, I'm feeling good, blah, blah, blah. But it's never like a perceptible. I never take the vitamin C. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, it was great vitamin C.
Man, my life has changed from this.
Right. But you put a little psilocybin in your vitamin C, and you're like, oh God, that really is good. So it becomes, it's perceptible. And if you can get that perception at 100 milligrams of active, 1 capsule, great. It's going to last longer. 60 capsules will last you, 60 dosage days. It's better. Or 2 capsules. So don't go pushing, that you think you got to do that. Limp into the process. And really what most people are going for, if you think about it, like if you can get a 5 to 10% level increase in just your overall aggregate well-being, at the end of the week, that's like 50 to 70% better. At the end of the month, that's 320% better, whatever it may be. Like it becomes aggregate, and then suddenly your life starts to stack and things get better and better. So just limp into the process, push your dosing up until you get to that sweet spot. And then once you know your sweet spot, then you can start to play around. You can start to go into performance dosing and other kind of levels. But like, I can't give you a hard answer about where your dosing should be. Your dosing should be at the level that it's most effective for what you want and need to do with your life. The general rule of thumb is 2 to 3 capsules. Now, in terms of taking the days off, I have this theory that I call like bent versus broken. So you're a well-adjusted, high-achieving, 40-something-year-old man. You got a wife, you got a kid, you got a business. Like you're doing great. You probably got some bends, but there's no real breaks there. You know what I'm saying? Like high levels of anxiety and dysfunction, PTSD. So that category of person, you're going for like that 5 to 10% level of improvement that you're going to get. My client, and this relates to the taking the days off, some of my veteran clients dealing with some real heavy duty trauma, they'll approach their days off or their weeks off, and their microdosing is helping them so much in their lives that they do not want to take their days off. And I tell them, don't. The thing about psilocybin, about magic mushrooms, is that they will literally let you know when you're ready to take a break. Mm-hmm. So if you're a guy like yourself, high achieving, well adjusted, doing pretty well in life, you got your issues, but you're making it. You're doing all right. Take your days off. Follow a performance dosing protocol. Follow a supplement protocol. Dose to the lowest level you can where it's most effective. But if you're dealing with real trauma issues in your life, and the idea of taking your days off is causing anxiety, and taking you a week or 10 days off after you finish a pack, you don't necessarily need to do that. You can stay with it. That's the final step of the microdosing process, of personalizing the process. Learn how to use this medicine, this tool that I believe, God and nature has provided for us, in a way that's most effective for you. Demystify, familiarize, personalize. That's where you're kind of going. So that's what I would say with the dosage. It's an open science. And what category are you in? If you're in the category that's bent and microdosing, you really feel like you stop having suicide ideation, your PTSD. I hear from some veterans sometimes that they're 50, 60, 70% better. I've heard on a number of occasions that night terrors have stopped. Like, they stopped having night terrors. I've had some veterans that such bad night terrors, they attack their spouse in their sleep a couple times a year or something, and that goes away. PTSD, major PTSD, suicide ideation goes away. If you're in that category, just listen to yourself. The mushrooms will let you know when you're ready to take your days off. If you're a guy like yourself, and probably many of your listeners, follow the protocol, supplement protocol, 5 days on, 2 days off, or do the performance dosing, 1 day on, 2 days off, 1 day on. Follow those protocols. Go for about 25 to 30 days. Give yourself a good 5 or 10 days to flush, let the neurological benefits set in. And then when you come back to your microdose, you get that nice honeymoon effect. You really notice it, and it's quite nice. And then you can kind of adjust your protocol from there. Also, and as I hope this kind of speaks to the integrity of what we're trying to do, because as a brand, you want to sell as much shit as you can, what I'm saying? But honestly, like, you might microdose for a couple months and be like, you know what? I think it served its purpose. I can save the $100, like, and I'll come back to it when I'm ready. Like, there's definitely, it wakes up your intuition in terms of your own health, your own well-being, and your own kind of emotional honesty with yourself. So just like tune into that, and these supplements will help direct you as well. So you'll know when you need to take your breaks and take your week off or not.
Of course. So then the time off, like say the two days off, or even taking a week off, is just to kind of gauge where you are without the medicine, to see what the long-term effects have been, right? Or is there any physiological reasons to take 2 days off? Maybe the body needs to reset, or there needs to be some, filtering out of the supplements or whatever.
Well, you will acclimate to psilocybin. Okay. You absolutely will. And it's still beneficial. There's a couple of things that are going on with psilocybin. I'm not, if your listeners want science, like, go to Fadiman, James Fadiman, Dr. James Fadiman. He's excellent. He's been at this for years. Stamets he's done this thing with vaccines and COVID that kind of broke my heart, blew my mind. Like, the first 45 minutes of his most recent interview with you on Rogan, like, I couldn't believe it. I don't want to sidetrack our interview, but like, and I don't want to discount all the great work he's done, because he crossed the red line in my book, which is like,
I agree.
He's a COVIDian, which is like, and for me, that's my life philosophy. I'm not going to sidetrack. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But if you got COVID wrong, like, fuck, man, you got to be,
you lose
really
a lot of credibility.
You got to be, and you haven't gone like a major apology tour. Like, you got to like, that's a demarcation for how you should probably compartmentalize that person and everything they have to offer, because 100%. They got the seminal moment of our lifetime. They got completely wrong. Mm-hmm. So like, I have a lot of like suspicion or compartmentalization to how I process information from anybody, especially if you're in the public sphere and you can offer healing and insight, and you could have acted courageously. And you chose not to, and you didn't. So that said, but Stamets has some great lectures and some great wisdom on the science part. And then Huberman has some great lectures and great wisdom. Particularly, he has like 190-minute of the Huberman lab, which is all about the scientific aspect of psilocybin. Most of that research is done with synthetic psilocybin, which I completely disagree with. Even though the effects and outcomes seem to be similar, I just think they're kind of missing the whole point. God put these plants here, this fungus here. What we do, we grow them really well, we dehydrate them really well, and then we use the whole plant and a little of the mycelium, because that's how it's meant to be. Single molecule extraction with psilocybin. With mushrooms, I just completely philosophically disagree with, and as a company, that's our feeling as well. So, oh shit, I got sidetracked. I said I wouldn't get sidetracked. Bring me back.
Talking about the COVID thing, and then going into like the way that you guys build your product.
So yeah, and then we were also going back into the neurological benefits in taking the days off.
Yeah.
So okay, yeah, what I was saying, I was prefacing, like, if you want the science, there's better people out there for like the hard brain science, hard mushroom science. I've had 2,500 conversations on how to microdose. So the thing with taking the days off, you will acclimate to psilocybin. You'll have some adjustment. So just taking the days off lets the neurological benefits set in. It lets you flush a little bit. And then when you come back on, you get that nice little bump, you get the honeymoon effect, you notice it. So really what taking the days off does is it reduces the likelihood of acclimating too much to the supplements. But there's two things going on with psilocybin. There's the neurological genesis. So you have new wiring, new neuroplasticity that's getting formed. And then you have old wiring from where you got concussed, or those years of football or trauma, where some maybe beneficial wiring that you had in your life kind of got tuned down. That can regenerate. That's neuroregenesis. So you have new neurological pathways being created, and you have the regeneration of old neural pathways. And that is more perceptible and will happen with greater speed if you do take your days off, because you let the brain flush, and then new psilocybin flushes into the brain, and it's making this kind of magic happen, new neural pathways, neurogenesis. The other thing that's happening with microdosing, if you don't take the days off and you're not even noticing some of the demonstrative benefits, psilocybin is a very powerful anti-inflammatory. So I haven't heard this investigated much, but I think part of the reason why you think more clearly on psilocybin, you see better, you hear better, is because subtle inflammation that we carry in the brain, we have inflammation all over our body. And then ocular inflammation around the eye, and also kind of sinus inflammation that affects the hearing and also the eyesight. I think that all reduces just by even the tiniest bit. So your vision gets better, your hearing gets better, your thinking gets a little clearer. And that might not be as perceptible, but those are benefits that are happening because of the anti-inflammatory qualities of psilocybin. We also blend with other powerful anti-inflammatories to help accelerate that. So there's perceptible benefits, and then there's benefits that you really almost might have to think about that are less obvious, but also perceptible. And those, I think, lean more on the anti-inflammatory side. So taking your days off just allows the flushing and a little bit the reset, allows the neurological benefits to kind of set in and maybe even be challenged a little bit, challenged by some of those old habits and old thought patterns to then you have to think, no, I want to, focus on what I want, not what I don't want, focus on what I want. So it kind of forces you, without the benefit of the psilocybin, to reinforce the neurological patterns. And then, why did I go dark? Did I go dark for you?
I don't know.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
So, okay, so it kind of forces you subjectively to reinforce the benefits of the neurological pathways that are getting created or regenerated. And then you're taking 5 to 10 days off every pack. That's just a larger flush, and you kind of let it out of your system. There'll also be some wisdom that might come to you of like, maybe I take 3 weeks off. Maybe I take a couple months off, or no, a week was good. I got to go back to it. I kind of need it. It helps you assess where you are with the product. But your listeners should also know that, and this has been clinically shown as well, that psilocybin is non-addictive and actually anti-addictive. It helps downregulate other addictions that you have in your life. For some reason, I don't entirely know why, psilocybin moves the brain in a beneficial direction, whether you're cognizant of it or not. I've had hundreds of clients tell me that, pornography addictions, smoking, eating, drinking alcohol, particularly alcohol, it just downregulates all those compulsive behaviors and addictions that so many of us have in our lives.
Amazing. Now, one of the things I noticed, I don't know if there's any studies or if you've experienced this, but I feel, especially when I was working out or doing, say, breath work or meditation, obviously my meditations are so much deeper, but I felt like my meridians are completely opened up. My energy channels like have so expanded. Even when I was running the stairs the other day, I noticed like my oxygenation levels were so much better, and I was less lactic acid production when I was running. I didn't feel as sore, and I felt like I was getting stronger towards the end of the workout, which usually I'm just like huffing and puffing and trying to finish it up. But I felt great after the workout too. So is there any more like any studies on more blood flow or more oxygenation to the body?
Well, yes, because your um, psilocybin, and I also think the way we've combined it, tunes up your nervous system. So it reduces inflammation, tunes up your nervous system. So you're just 1, 2, 3% more efficient.
Mm.
And if you think about like athletic levels of performance, you think about the difference between making a basket and missing a basket. You think about like with a tennis serve, what's an ace, what's a fault? A soccer, what comes off the post and not a goal versus what hits on the inside of the post is a goal. It's 0.5%. It's 0.25%. It's 1%. Athletically, if you have like if you have a 1% improvement, that's enormous. A 1% improvement in reaction time. So these qualities with psilocybin of reducing inflammation, increasing mental acuity, oral acuity, visual acuity, you're just better. And then I think the anti-inflammatory qualities of the mushroom, everything is 1% better. You're breathing a little deeper. Your sinuses are opened up. The inflammation in the sinuses is slightly reduced. So you're really delving into the benefits of the performance dosing and the performance dosing protocol that we've kind of developed. But those are very much the reasons. It's the neuroregenesis, and then it's also the anti-inflammatory qualities. Helps the capillaries, the lungs open up. Your nervous system is firing. A little bit of inflammation in the sinuses reduces. So you're breathing and you're more effective. The other thing that happens with psilocybin is that, your listeners can easily Google brain testing, non-psilocybin and the psilocybin brain. Same brain, it's like completely active. That activation is inevitably stimulating the pituitary gland and the pineal gland. And those are our real God glands. Those are our magic glands. Our pituitary gland helps regulate our consciousness and our frontal lobe and our ability to think and function clearly. And then our pineal gland is our spiritual gland. It's the gland that's very active on children from birth through 7. They emotional understanding, language understanding. It's the 6th and 7th chakras that we're kind of talking about as well. And those areas get stimulated just from the increased neurological activity of being on a microdose. So all your performance markers are going to go up slightly. And if you have breath work and meditation, and it's not like you got to microdose and meditate, but just after a few days of microdosing, it's in your system. If when you approach your breath work and you approach your meditation, if you're thinking, close the eyes, move the eyes a little bit between and above, so you're kind of aiming towards the third eye point, and you're thinking about your pineal gland, oxygenating your pineal gland, firing your pineal gland, decalcifying your pineal gland, it becomes very effective. So the fact that your breath work is deepened, your meditation is deepened, is all very much the ancillary benefits of that neurological, that there's just more electricity happening in your brain. So your meditation is going to deepen and your breath work is going to deepen. And then you can really, hack your life by, when you exercise, breathe through your nose. I do brutal Peloton, Tabata, and HIIT and Hills workouts, and I only exercise breathing through my nose, and I really work that. I like to do deep breathing. I tend to get up about 4 a.m., 3:30, 4 a.m. for about an hour, and I pray and meditate.
That's the
and do
best
breath.
time. Three o'clock meditations are the best.
It is. But the problem is with my breath work at that time is I wake the house up. Our house is, it's a little smaller, so everybody can wake up. So so I have to breathe very slow and deliberately so I don't wake everybody up. But I'm so thinking about the pineal gland, raising energy, stimulating the pineal gland, decalcifying the pineal gland. And the other thing that's really interesting about mushroom, psilocybin, psychedelics is that in the world that we're living in, I know that we're like-minded. I imagine most of your listeners are. It arms you spiritually for what we're really in for right now and what we're going through. It helps you evoke and wake up your humanity. And if you then are cognizant when you're doing your breath work, when you're doing your meditation work, when you're exercising, can I breathe through my nose? So I'm really stimulating my lymphatic system and my nervous system, and I'm increasing dopamine and serotonin release because I'm breathing through my nose. It's a very different experience. If you're listeners, and then placement of the tongue, you have that little palate ridge slightly behind the front teeth. If your tongue can set on the front side of that palate ridge behind the teeth
upper
and to
part
the
of
front side,
the mouth, yeah.
upper palate, yeah.
Mhm.
And when you're exercising, if you can bring in these breath work and meditative, so your tongue's placed there, you're trying to breathe through your nose, push yourself as hard as you can, breathing only through your nose, your exercise experience becomes much more meditative. It's a significantly higher dopamine dump that happens. And then if you can exercise with your eyes closed, can you think about stimulating your pituitary and your pineal gland, your sixth and seventh chakra? And then as you're meditating, and all this gets facilitated by the increased neurological activity of the microdose. So you're really boosting up your life, and you're doing a great kind of habit stacking. I always think at 54 years old, still with teenage kids, sports all over the place. Both my boys are kind of super athletes. We do 26 hours of driving just back and between sports and coaching and weekend games and club sports and everything. So I've got to always stack habits. So I train hard. I train like fast Tabata workouts, but I'm deepening my breath. I'm capturing all my breath through my sinuses, breathing as lower belly, middle lung, upper lung. I do my performance dose 40 minutes, an hour before I hit the gym. I have a bulletproof BrainSupreme coffee recipe up on the website. So I've got all these neurological boosters in my coffee with beneficial fats. And then, I'm breathing deeply as I work out. And anytime I can on a piece of exercise equipment, I'm closing the eyes. So I'm taking the energy to the pituitary and the pineal gland, and then I'm inhaling with a mantra, exhaling with a mantra. So I'm always trying to stack the habits, and all that then with the juice of the psilocybin going through the brain, like it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So really beneficial.
Yeah, I love that you kind of mentioned that. So like all these waves of energy, right? So it's improving every aspect of your life. It's improving your workouts. It's improving your time at home with your family. It's improving your meditations. It's improving your cognitive abilities. So as your energy goes throughout the day, like we are nothing but energy. So if our energy is always positive and vibrating, outwards in a state of love, then it's really hard for any one thing to bother you throughout the day. In the past, like sometimes we'll have a low sales day and I'm like, oh, it's the end of the world, right? But I have to get myself out of that thinking, because yeah, if you're in that low vibrational field that you're thinking scarcity, then that also habit stacks, right? So then that one thought leads to another. So you're either in a downward spiral of thoughts or your upward spiral of thoughts. So I find like the psilocybin microdosing is actually helping me no matter what, stay in that upward spiral and just staying in that good vibrational state.
Yeah. It also, I have to say, I really feel it helps with the perception of, it opens your intuition. It opens your intuition, and it helps you with the perception of truth, which is so important in this day and age where the propaganda and the lies and also what we're learning about our world can literally entirely destabilize you, but that when that happens, what can you come back to? Like what's real? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, love is real, my love of my wife, my love of my children, that's real. I can come back to that, how much can I offer of myself? How much can I be of good cheer? How much can I be of service? Like those things are real. So as the fabric of our reality in this crazy time we're living in starts to kind of reformulate, shatter and reformulate in a new and truthful way, these psychedelics, and I think used at the supplement level particularly, macrodosing is very important, another conversation, but at the microdosing level, like it's a level of spiritual armament, like it prepares you and it keeps you connected to your higher nature. It keeps you connected to yourself and your higher aspirations. For me, to God, to love, and to family. So it's all incredibly beneficial. The other thing too is like, if you go to our website, we're like phenomenal feedback, but we don't edit the feedback. If somebody writes something negative, I respond. I'm usually like, hey, you want to call me for some coaching? Because there's like, you can juice these things up. There's some things that you can do. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Most of the time they do. But don't just sit back and think, oh, I finally got the microdosing supplement. It's going to do all the work for me. You still got to work, man.
You still got to do the
But the
work
thing is,
always.
but what microdosing can do is it can put the wind in your sails a little bit. but you still got to work. And then the more you give to the microdose, the more you give to the mushrooms and the psilocybin, kind of like anything in your life, the more you're going to get in return. So you do the habit stacking, you're deepening your breath, your exercise becomes meditative, becomes mantra repetition, becomes an expression of how much can I push my willpower, how much can I surrender. Like on the I really love mountain biking. I hardly mountain bike anymore. It hurts me to admit that. But when I go crazy on my Peloton rides, and I'm doing it on my performance dosing days, I'm trying to personal best while breathing through my nose. I'm thinking there's an aspect of I'm pushing my will. I want to test myself. But like with pedaling, I got to surrender a little bit. Like the more perfect your circle is as you're pedaling, there's an aspect of surrender. Because if I'm efforting here and efforting here on the downstroke and the downstroke, there's no surrender to the momentum and to the circle. So it's like, you can use the microdose as a way to facilitate the perfections and excellence that you're going for in your life, and also from a kind of a spiritual standpoint as well.
Yeah, it's the life is a dance between that warrior energy and the wizard energy. So we can't just like, always be warrior, 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 like Tony Robbins mindset. Like it'll burn you out if you're just always like trying to pump yourself up. You have to go with the flow of the universe, kind of like, what Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches, and like allow these things to happen and just being the right vibrational state. So you need both of them. Without action, you can't just expect stuff to come to you. And then you can't just, be sitting around and doing nothing and then having, things happen in a good way. So
Yeah.
action is required, but also surrender. So it's a nice dance between life. And I guess that's the lesson that we're always trying to learn in life is how do you balance all of that stuff?
Well, I think the microdosing helps. If any of your listeners have ever had a macro experience, what a macrodosing, a therapeutic dose, heroic dose, that turns the lights on. Boom. And the thing with turning the lights on is the lights go off, the experience ends, the lights go off, but the pattern of the darkness, the pattern of the room is never the same. The darkness has been exposed. So where the furniture lies. You know what I'm saying? Like if you arrive to a hotel room, with blackout curtains, and you kind of stumbled to your bed at night, when you wake up at 4 a.m. to take a piss, you're going to walk into all the furniture and the desk and this and that. But if you just walked in when you got in your hotel room and flicked the lights on for 30 seconds and then shut them off, you understand the pattern in the darkness. The microdosing then helps you continually walk towards that light. So they work very well in conjunction with one another. And even if you haven't had the macro experience, there's just something about microdosing. It just keeps walking you just gentle steps towards the light, towards your higher nature. Towards what is strikes you as relevant and truthful and meaningful.
Yeah, definitely. Now, are there any specific strains of psilocybin mushroom? I know, like I've heard there's so many types. Are they some better for microdosing versus others? And which ones do you guys choose to work with?
Well, we've been at this for a while. We created our own strain of mushroom, and we were crossbreeding. My partner speaks a couple of different languages, so we were able to bring in genetics from around the world, and we created our own specific type of mushroom that we use for BrainSupreme that we really feel is most effective. We tested at the macro level, we've tested at the micro level, we've tested it at a multitude of levels. So in the evolution of psychedelics in the United States, it pretty much started with the ones that grow on poop, which are golden teachers. And then golden teachers started to be cultivated. And then there was different areas. Texas had a type of mushroom that's called the Texas teacher. And then there was a type of mushroom that grew on poop that was a cubensis that was a little more blue-like and almost gossamer-like. And they call that ghost mushroom. So there's all these different mushrooms. And then the Hamilton, the hell's that guy's name, who does the great deep dives on psychedelics? He was on Vice for years.
Vice, Hamilton something. Yeah, Hamilton, I know exactly. Yeah,
he did this amazing radio documentary on penis envy, and then albino penis envy. And for most people, from like the recreational standpoint, microdosing standpoint, most people feel that that's the mushroom these days, or a variation of albino penis envy or penis envy. And they literally look like a penis. That's why it has the name. Those originally, no one really knows the origin, but they seem to have come from Brazil, and then they were cultivated by one of the in the late 60s, 70s by somebody in Northern California, one of the forerunners in kind of the mushroom space. And so that seems to be the preferred mushroom in both the macro and microdosing space these days. But a lot of all the cubensis have their own powers and magic that they work. And most of the therapeutic counselors in the space, psychedelic therapists, they have their own combination that they like to use per their own recipe and so forth. But in terms of like my product or other products out there, most people are trying to get the penis envy or albino penis envy. Ours is a little proprietary. I don't want to, it's going to be a competitive field pretty soon, but we got a little bit of secret sauce in our BrainSupreme proprietary blend in the mushroom that we've created. And everybody knows the stamina stack, niacin and lion's mane, that's effective, but there's some other little secret key ingredients that you can stack in there too that really juice up the effectiveness of the psilocybin. I think that's one of the things that distinguishes us as a brand is the quality of the mushrooms that we grow, how meticulous we are about it, and then the synergistic blending that through a lot of effort and research we've kind of come upon. So our athlete really makes you feel more athletic. Genius really makes you feel more genius. Feel good, you really do feel good. And when you take black stack, oh, you notice.
For sure. And I know you put a lot of adaptogen mushrooms in there as well, chaga, reishi, and all this kind of stuff.
Yes. Yeah. And then the different nootropics, amino acids, and the supplements and vitamins and herbs, they work in different combinations very synergistically.
Okay. Now, just from a risk perspective, is there any side effects that people should be aware of from microdosing?
Great question. I actually created a coaching course, which will be, so we got 2 free things on the website, brainsupreme.co, and we're going to give your listeners a nice discount at the end, which we'll go through. But there's a free coffee recipe, and the coaching course is almost finished. And I actually did the coaching course, and I realized, oh, you know what? I didn't put in this kind of general information, a little bit of warnings, contraindications, and so forth. So I'm so glad you asked the question. Very important. At the microdosing level, there are no known contraindications, okay? It doesn't conflict with any known pharmaceutical drug. It doesn't conflict with any condition that anyone has at all. If you suffer from seizures, there is research out there that both says macrodosing psilocybin can help cure seizures, but there's other people who feel, and research has found that it could trigger seizures. So seizures are a very small category. If you've suffered from seizures and you want to microdose, I think you should have a complementary, you should do a lot of research. You should start very small, and you should have a complementary quality naturopathic physician that you're having some conversation with. So that's a separate category, a very small category. If you're on an SSRI or SNRI antidepressant and you've been on one for a while, there's about a 50% chance that psilocybin won't be effective for you. You eat psilocybin, it hits your liver, it converts to psilocin, and then your brain absorbs the psilocin, and you have these psilocin receptors in your brain. For some reason, they seem to get blocked if you've been on an antidepressant for a long time, in about 50% of people, not everybody, okay? So you just have to kind of go for it. Now, even if your psilocin receptors feel blocked to you, if you continue, there's still benefits to microdosing. There's the anti-inflammatory benefits, and you can also then start a process, which I'm going to say with the utmost respect, you have to assume tremendous personal responsibility and either be under the guidance of a really good doctor or find one of these psychedelic therapists who's created the protocol for downregulating your antidepressant and staying with your microdosing. I've seen it with clients dozens of times where they can scale down their antidepressant, stay with their microdosing, and replace. Okay. Yeah. And replace very effectively. But there's no contraindication. It just might not be effective for you. There is, if I have 100 clients, there might be 1 out of every 100 that is not on antidepressant, lives a pretty clean lifestyle, and doesn't seem to respond to psilocybin. They're almost always a redhead. It's incredible. They're almost always a ginger. Okay.
That's interesting.
Like I've had it happen 10 times and it's been 9 redheads. I've developed a protocol on how to crack that.
For redheads.
You have to
the redhead protocol.
Also, but you have to shock the psilocin receptors in the brain. So you got to find somebody who can get you a mid dose of, doesn't have to be a heroic dose, 1.5 grams or more. safe setting, scene and setting matters so much. Please take personal responsibility for how you're approaching this. Take a slightly larger dose to the therapeutic or heroic level or recreational level, at least 1.5 grams or more, and that will turn on the psilocin receptors in the brain. And then you can go back to microdosing at a reasonable, 1 to 300 kind of milligram dosage level. So that's another thing. It's not a side effect. The most consistent initial, maybe less than beneficial experience is sleepiness. If I have 100 clients, 3 of them during their first 3 days of microdosing might be sleepy. Now, this almost always goes away, okay? So just stay with your microdosing. It lasts about 2 hours, about 30, 40 minutes after you microdose, you're gonna start to get very sleepy. There's a couple things that are going on here. One, you're generally fatigued. Mushrooms, especially when you begin, are gonna take you where you need to be more so than where you want to go. So if you are fatigued, if you are dehydrated, if your adrenals are shot, the mushroom's going to want to put you down and say, hey, you need a 20-minute nap. You didn't get enough sleep. So sometimes if you're in a place where you can just give into the nap, and usually I'm not much of a golfer, but there's a very good metaphor of microdosing. There's the front 9 and there's the back 9. If the front 9's a little rough or a little sleepy or there's a little bit of anxiety, just stay with it, breathe. The back 9 is almost inevitably going to get nice and beneficial, and you'll feel the increased energy and focus and kind of qualities of the microdose. But the sleepiness can also be an indication that you're dehydrated and you're mineral deficient. And I've had 100% success curing this. It can be an indication of a little bit of neurotoxicity and neurodehydration. Drink quality water, spring water, put a good filter system on, try to get a fluoride filter as well on your water, increase your water intake, add some quality electrolytes like the LMNT electrolytes. I have no relationship to that company. I don't even use those. We use a company called Zeal Naturals, Zeal Naturals. I order them on Amazon. They've got great flavor and my kids love them. So that's our go-to brand. But add quality electrolytes to your water and then take some magnesium supplements before you go to bed at night. And that almost always, with increased water, that almost always clears it up. The other little hack that you can do, it's very good to take a microdose in the morning on an empty stomach, water with lemon juice or coffee with fats. When you do your water with lemon juice, you can take a pinch of high quality salt. This is the best way to mineralize the body. You can take a pinch of Baja Gold or Celtic salt. Yeah, great. Or Celtic. Those are the 2 best salts. Pink salt, Himalayan salt is great. You just got to really push your provider because it's a lot of it's coming from China and it's got some heavy metals. I'll use Celtic or Baja. Put a nice pinch under the tongue. Drink your lemon water. The 91 or 92 trace minerals that are in that sea salt, they infuse the body sublingually and then also through the digestion process, really help hydrate the brain and provide proper hydration. And then in every single situation, that sleepiness that sometimes people have with the first few days of microdosing completely goes away. So, and then heavy cannabis users. Okay. If you're dabbing, you're doing extracted cannabis oil products and you're microdosing at the same time, it can be overwhelming for the brain. It's moving the brain. I have no science to back this up. I have no research. I just have, the feedback that I've had from clients and how we've been able to correct. If you need to use cannabis for your life, I have no judgment. I was in the industry for years. Try to microdose in the morning. Follow the protocol, empty stomach, coffee with fats, water with lemon, okay? And then save your cannabis use towards later in the day, okay? Do the microdose to kind of tune you up, bring you on point, get you associative, connected to your life, to your work, towards your family. And then later in the day, when you need to get disassociative, that's when you do your cannabis. If you do both at the same time, it's the only feedback I've ever had on 3 occasions of real negative experiences from microdosing. When I pushed them, every time it was combined with wake and bakers. They wake and bake, but not only wake and bake, they wake and dab. So they do the dabs and then they would microdose. Not a good combination. Microdose in the morning, save your cannabis usage for the afternoon. That's a really good pain remedy too if you suffer from chronic pain. You can microdose and some CBD in the morning, especially if you can find the cannabis-derived CBD products if you're in a market where it's legal, cannabis-derived CBD products or CBD products with your microdose, very good for pain diminishment. And then in the evening, then you can use your heavier cannabis use to reduce your pain. That's very effective. Microdosing, if taken later in the day, is not a stimulant in terms of caffeine, but it's neuroactivating. So if you microdose into the afternoon, it can be a little bit sleep disruptive for some people. Some people sleep better, but on occasion it can be sleep disruptive. If you microdose in the front part of the day, I almost always hear that sleep improves overall. But if you're pushing an all-nighter, you got some heavy studying to do, or your competitive sport is in the evening, go ahead and take your microdose in the evening, and just, if it's a little bit sleep disruptive, drink some water, just, do some reading, do some breathing, it'll kind of diminish and you'll fall asleep. But microdosing taken later in the day, on occasion with some people, can be mildly sleep disruptive. I think that's every like warning, contraindication, and so forth. But in terms of any medicine that you're on, anything like that, there's no known contraindications. James Fadiman has been collecting, I think, over 50,000 anecdotal testimonies for a year, and there's literally no contraindications on the microdosing level. That said, if you are on any pharmaceutical products, or you have any concerns, just start real small. Just limp in. Just do half a capsule, one capsule.
Yeah.
See how it goes.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. That's so much a wealth of a knowledge that you possess. And I would love to hear more about how you work with clients, because obviously everybody has their own individual journey, what they're trying to accomplish. So tell me a little bit about, your coaching program, how it works, and maybe you could share some of the amazing testimonials you've experienced in your time.
So look, I have a product. I want to move product. I'm talking to you as a business guy right now. I have a product. I want to move product. The coaching is, and I give away almost all my knowledge for free. Mm-hmm. But the coaching is for people who have more hesitancy, more concern. They've never been to it, and I'm really quite affordable. You have $250. You've got at least a 45-minute first consultation, and then I'll just, it says 2 follow-up phone calls, but literally I'll stay with you as long as you need, follow-up phone calls. And that's to help tweak the product. But it's basically hand-holding, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been a trainer with your fitness in your facility. Like, some people can just charge into the gym, really do it. Other people need a little hand-holding, a little tweaking, and so forth. So I'm there for them for that. And it usually comes from people who are a little more anxious, a little more anxiety in general, particularly about using the product. And they just want the comfort of, instead of the generalized instruction, we can get more specific, and we can really problem solve. In fact, some of the way I've been solving problems with taking the larger dose, the slightly rec or mid-level dose to turn on the receptors, that was solved through coaching. The sleepiness, the dehydration, the magnesium, the electrolyte depletion, that was solved through coaching. Through the coaching process, if I can find out what somebody's life is about, I can really help put them on a course and correct their microdosing and help maximize the experience. I'll go through your morning routine. Are you waking up, taking a microdose, getting on your phone and doom scrolling? Yeah, guess what? Your microdose might make you more anxious, because that's a really shitty morning habit. And so sometimes just having spent the money and you're assuming somebody has expertise, I'm like, look, I'm going to make it real simple. Okay. That's a stupid, shitty habit, and the microdosing is only going to add to anxiety, increase your anxiety. Wake up, put your phone aside, do your microdose, and just go for a 10-minute walk and try to breathe deep. Yeah, get some sunlight in your eye, breathe through your nose, middle lung, lower belly, middle lung, upper lung, exhale the breath out through the mouth or the sinuses, and then come back. And that's all you got to change. And I'm like, wow, that really works. Microdosing is great. I came back from the walk and I didn't even really want to pick my phone up anymore. I'm like, yeah. So the coaching helps me subjectively perfect the process and problem solve the process for clients. Most people fall into the space of the general recommendations that I give on this podcast or my coaching course. I have a product. I believe in the product. I love what I do. I think the product really helps people. I want to move product. The coaching is a benefit if people need some assistance along the way, either from an anxiety standpoint or from a specific technique standpoint, complementary lifestyle standpoint.
Amazing. And I have to vouch for your product. It's absolutely incredible. It's helped me in so many ways in such a short time. And it's so palpable the way that it's working in my life. And it's so in coherence with what I do for a living in terms of health and wellness, helping other people, being there with an open heart, and then also connecting with my family, my friends, everyone. It's just it's a really beautiful flow to be in on a daily basis. And when a couple days that I don't take it, I still feel the benefits
Mhm.
are all, working in cohesion, and, it's all cumulative. I don't think, I need to have it, or, I have to take a big dose or anything like that. It's amazing. My protocol, I take it in the morning after I work out. Maybe I'll try it before I work out now.
Oh yeah.
And then I'll also do like, fat coffee. So I'll put butter, MCT oil, and a few other things. Creatine I got from your advice as well. And
Ceylon cinnamon.
Ceylon cinnamon.
Let-
I bought some Ceylon cinnamon as well.
and then if you can get um the Ohm Master Blend,
Hmm.
or a couple other companies, the 10 mushrooms and ashwagandha also in the coffee. Really good. And then if you take a high quality omega, I'm using the life extension. It's a blended omega at the same time. Like that is brain power.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
could also add rhodiola if you're
Mhm.
gonna. There's some rhodiola in our athlete formula, but if you're doing the performance dosing, you could. Okay, so if you're doing the performance dosing with the coffee with fat, raw cream, organic cream, um, a little bit of butter, why not? A little bit of coconut oil. I'm not a believer in MCT oil. It upsets my stomach on an empty stomach. It's so expensive. I don't really know why. I just use good organic coconut oil, and then the Ceylon cinnamon, 2.5 grams Ceylon cinnamon, about 5 grams of creatine. All this is rough, just like chef kind of throw it in.
Mhm.
And then I'll do some raw honey, and then I'll do about 5 grams of the Ohm Master Blend in there. And then I take my vitamin E, I take my omega, I take a rhodiola, and I take niacin. I take niacin at the level where I kind of feel it, um, nano niacin, and I do that on my performance dosing days. My workouts are like flow state through the roof.
Amazing. I've heard of niacin when you go into a sauna, and I've done that, but I've never tried it because I know you feel a little bit like, like your blood is really, really flowing. You get a little bit like red in the
Hmm.
face and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna try that on my next dose.
Cool. And so it sounds like you're naturally leaning towards the performance dosing, which is the two heavier training days. So performance dosing protocol is basically you do one day on and then 2 or 3 days off. And like you could think about it, if Monday and Thursdays are your biggest workout days. So you do your performance dose in the morning, try to do 30, 40 minutes, an hour before you have your real workout. It's a slightly higher dose. So let's say your sweet spot of microdosing is 2 capsules or 200 milligrams. You might push to 3 or 4 to a much more perceptible level, but you're going to burn off the kind of more noticeable aspect of it in the workout. And then the benefits of the microdose linger throughout the day. So the performance dosing is a slightly higher dosage, just maybe 100 milligrams above what your normal sweet spot is. It's done about 40 minutes before your exercise, better done in the morning. Or if you are a competitive athlete or amateur athlete, you do it one training day a week and then you do it on game day. Don't do it your first time on game day. Perfect it during your training days. And you also have to really honor your off days when you're doing performance dosing so you don't acclimate as much. The idea is that you really want to have your performance level jump. And then the benefits of the performance dose will linger throughout the day and the next 2 days, and then you do it again.
Would you say that there's a large percentage of professional athletes that are microdosing psilocybin?
No, I
Yeah.
think it's very small. And I
Yeah.
think the ones that are all using my product.
Yeah. Amazing.
No, I don't think that's the case. I think it
Yeah.
depends on the community. I
Yeah.
think in the mixed martial arts world,
Mhm.
that's probably where it's the highest. Those guys are early adapters.
Mhm.
And then I think in every other sport, it's probably shockingly low. Shockingly low.
Mhm.
Uh, the thing this people might ask, psilocybin, um, it could potentially show up in urine, but it never has, especially at the microdosing level. It just shows up as mushrooms or something like that. But the USADA test, no testing is testing for psilocybin urine. The only way psilocybin can show up, and it's never actually popped at the microdosing level, is in hair follicles. And the only people who do hair follicle testing is family court. And I've been researching, I use AI, everything. They say the potential, but I've never actually been able to find a case where a microdose of psilocybin popped in a hair follicle level. So in terms of that, like athletes should feel very comfortable about using it, even athletes at the highest level. They should always check the literature, check what the testing's for, and so forth. But at the highest levels, it's a wonderful natural performance booster, and it's completely within the realm of legalities, even morally and ethical legalities. Because everybody, part of being an athlete is pushing yourself nutritionally. You know, you're not taking a pharmaceutical compound that was, you know, created like a steroid or anything like that, or an EPO, a blood booster. You know, if you discover the cordyceps and rhodiola increase your cardiovascular performance, which has been clinically shown to do that, are you cheating if you take an increased rhodiola and cordyceps dose before your athletic performance? No, you're just being smart, you know.
Absolutely.
And that's how that I don't have any moral or ethical qualms about using athletically for an advantage microdosing.
Absolutely. And, you know, like all these Silicon Valley guys, you know, creativity is through the roof. So a lot of them are microdosing as well to, you know, to build companies and to build technology and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Creatively, it helps tremendously. I have a great story about that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he would be okay if I mentioned his name because he's a friend of mine, but I'm not going to mention his name right now. But this doctor was the poster child for pharmaceutical character assassination. He discovered something in the late 90s. He was running a medical clinic practice at a hospital, university hospital in the UK, and he discovered a causality between one of the vaccine shots and irritable bowel syndrome in children that would then lead to either Asperger's or autism. And basically the paper that his team wrote ended with this warrants more research. And it was published in the Lancet, which, you know, is the leading medical journal of the world. It was peer reviewed. It was won awards. And then maybe it was Tony Fauci, and was actually, found out about this, and they sent the jackals on him. And within 6 months, career was being destroyed. He's under stress. He's losing his license. You know, the whole shit happened. He became a documentary filmmaker and started to really go into vaccine science and what's going on. And I bumped into this guy at a coffee shop here in Texas, just randomly. And I'm like, "You're that guy?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "I'm a fan." So we have this, I'm like, "God bless you. I know your whole life story." Like, you know, and I just started like, "You're the best, man. You're the best." He said, "What are you doing?" I was there with a web designer guy. He said, "What are you doing here?" And so I said, "Well, we're working on this product called BrainSupreme on our website." He said, "Oh, I'm very interested in that." So I gave him a packet of Genius. It was like this was about 3 years ago now. I gave him a packet of Genius, and I got his phone number. And I check in with clients, especially back then. I would always check in, you know, with 5 or 10 days later. And I get a phone call from the guy 4 days later. And I'm like, "Doctor?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "You're calling me?" He's like, "You got a minute?" It was 9:30 in the morning. He was like super excited. I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You know, I make films now." I'm like, "Yeah, documentaries. I've seen them." He goes, "No, I make feature films and I write feature films." He goes, "The best thing I've ever written in my life, I wrote 10 years ago and I never had an ending for it. And it sits in my desk drawer and it torments me every day of my life." He said, "I woke up at 4 a.m. with the ending complete in my mind. I just finished writing. It's the best thing I've ever written. And it's the next movie I want to do." And he goes, "The only thing I'm done different is I'm on day 4 of BrainSupreme." And I was like, "Holy shit." And we've been friends ever since. And it turns out his son is now one of my partners and head of marketing and sales and so for the company. So even at the microdosing level, yeah, that increased, you know, it increases brain activity. And so of course, certain things are going to get opened up and wired up. And for this guy, he found the ending to his story that he never could, with his conscious mind, never came to him. So good story.
Incredible story. And again, with the synchronicities, right? It's like randomly, you know, quote,
Right.
you meet him in a coffee shop, but it's all meant to, you know, to bring you closer to the, you know, to your highest purpose in life, and, you know, having new business partner, and, you know, you guys are doing this together, and yeah, it's beautiful. So let me ask you a question, because you're all into this, and the spirituality aspect of life is like, why do you think you came here to Earth as Adam Schell, and what did you want to experience?
So when I was When Joseph Campbell, you heard of Joseph
Yeah.
Campbell? Yeah, okay. Power of Myth. So for your listeners, before there was Jordan Peterson, there was Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell really created the field of comparative religion, and he also wrote the Hero with a Thousand Faces, which is he quantified the heroic arc, all the steps of the heroic arc. George Lucas took this and made Star Wars based upon his writing and the arc of Luke Skywalker, and that kind of blew Joseph Campbell up. So when I was coming out of college, he had just done a series of interviews with Bill Moyers called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. Great documentary series. You can still dig it up on YouTube and everything. Completely worthwhile. Very inspiring guy. Great thinker. But he had this line that I think the first time I heard it, maybe I was 21, 22 years old. And it said, a vital person vitalizes. And the point of your life is to become vital, and then you vitalize the world around you. So I've done different things in my life, but that always resonates with me. Like, how vital can I be so that I can vitalize the world around me? And not in like, you got to be really careful, not in like a force of will, egoic way, but how much can I raise my vibration to a place of health, well-being, love? Can my physical stature inspire people? Can my intellectual abilities inspire people? Can I vitalize the world around me? So that's my thing, man. In small ways. I don't have to hit home runs with it. I can just hit a lot of singles. That's fine by me at this point in my life. I want to vitalize the world around me.
And beautiful. And the microdosing is absolutely vitalizing all of us who take it. And, it's hard to serve anyone else or inspire anyone else unless we're coming or giving from a full cup. And I think that, the products that you offer and, what you're bringing to this world is just, is more vitalization, more life force, more prana, more chi in people's lives. And, I really admire that. And, I always am inspired by people that are just living their purpose. And you're absolutely, doing that for so many people.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's great.
So can microdosing bring you closer to God?
Oh yeah, micro and macro dosing for sure. There's a lot of people in the religious community who historically had a lot of problems with any form of what was considered an illicit drug. But the takeaway from the macrodosing experience is almost always a closer connection to God, that they just feel more connected to the spirit. And, like I said, the macrodosing turns on the light. The pattern of the darkness is never the same. And the microdosing just keeps walking you to the light. So yeah, I would like 100% say that habitual microdose usage will bring you closer to God and spirit and deepen your spiritual practices. There's Sam Tripoli and we kind of, because this is his vein, we talked about some of the more nefarious history of psychedelics, LSD, the CIA, all these things. But it's never really been effective as a mind control tool, psilocybin. Psilocybin is a mind liberation tool, and it doesn't make better soldiers. It doesn't make better rule followers in a way. It makes better human beings. And I think by, Hu means light, Man means mind. We're beings with light in the mind. And I think that psilocybin at the macro and microdosing level turns that light on, and that light naturally brings you to your divinity and closer to God. So 100%, yeah.
Beautiful. And what does God mean to you?
So God to me means those things that are irrefutably real. Love, kindness, joy, authenticity. They did this study on emotional power. I forgot how they registered the power of it, but it wasn't love, it wasn't rage, it wasn't anger that registered the strongest on the charts. It was authenticity. So, I think God is kind of many things. I think it's a kind of etheric, energetic field that pushes us to have the most meaningful and loving life that we possibly can, and to be the best human being that we possibly can. But I also think that it means living with great authenticity, and that you just feel like you're not at war with yourself at all, that you're your thoughts, your actions, your deeds, they're kind of unified and harmonized, and it keeps you on a course of your higher nature.
Amazing. That's so beautiful. I want to thank you so much, Adam, for coming on. How can our listeners learn more about BrainSupreme?
So I'm shit at social media. Like but our main focus right now in building the company is to just do as many podcasts as we possibly can. That's the way to, and then we'll build social media from there. It's like, if you got 1,000 followers, like, they don't need to see something from you every day, you know. You got
Just
to
show me
build
the fucking stuff. Show me the good stuff.
Yeah,
I don't, you know.
yeah. So I'm not, and so the website, brainsupreme.co. You can email me through the website, or microdosecoach.co, microdosecoach.co, brainsupreme.co. That's the best way to reach me, to learn about the company. If you Brain Supreme, we're on the TikTok and Telegram, and we're building a YouTube channel, so all those things. But really, old school, I mean, relatively new, old school, just hit me up through the website, brainsupreme.co. Oh, we're going to do a nice discount for your listeners.
Absolutely.
So basically, if you go on the website and you give us your email, you get 10% off. But for listeners, we'll do 15% off. Limitless15, and we'll do that for the first 15 days that the show drops. So we'll create some kind of urgency there too. Oh, and the one thing I want to say too as well is, we're gonna, just the nature of this business and so forth, and the qualities controls, we're gonna cap our company at 5,000 orders a month, and the auto renewal people. So I never say join an auto renewal. There's not that much pressure yet. But if you do like the company, do think about the auto renewal. You will, and you can do 30 days, 45 days, 60 days. The reason why I'm saying that is because when we hit that 5,000, we are going to cap, and we're going to become more of a club than a product that's out there. We just have to do that in terms of where we're at, for a number of reasons, and to really control the quality and so forth. So don't push, just order one. You don't have to go crazy, order whatever seems best for you. It's expensive, I get it. Use the discount code. If you like it, do think about joining the auto renewal, because we're getting there. Every podcast we gain a couple hundred more monthly subscribers and so forth, and that will eventually have to cap out, and then we'll be kind of a closed loop in a way. So just something to think about, with no pressure, but something to think about.
Yeah, totally understandable. In order to maintain the quality, it's like, we're not mass producing this stuff. You're doing it on a very small batch, level. And, the quality is definitely there for anyone who wants to experience that. So the code is limitless15 for anyone that wants to try it out. Highly suggest it. I don't really, suggest a lot of products to people, but this is one that absolutely is changing my life. So really want to thank you about that, for that. Now, Adam, do you have any final thoughts or any advice for us?
No, just, if I have 100 clients that come in, all right, 100 orders that come in, different clients, like literally 90% of them, they might not all reorder, but like, they definitely appreciated the process. So like, if you're curious about it, if you've had any interest about it, give it a try. It's very beneficial. I didn't go much into my personal story, but look, for my own life and for so many clients' lives, like, I think we're onto something that works. Even if you only need it for a short time, it can definitely help. I face planted really hard at 50 years old. I went from doing tremendously well to terribly bad, like lost everything, zeroed out, didn't have 20 bucks to our name, with like family with kids and so forth, had to completely reboot, start over. And it was 100% the development of these products that helped get me through and put the wind in my sails. It's a really great, benign, ultimately beneficial life hack that, even if you just give it one try, if you have any curiosity about it, give it a try.
Amazing.
It really seems to work for the majority of people.
We totally appreciate your authenticity and the gifts that you share with the world. Thank you so much, brother.
That was a great conversation. Thank you.